guys, welcome back to CJ's Keto Kitchen. Happy New Year. Tonight I'm going to be making a refreshing mini cheesecake, and it is going to be key lime mini cheesecakes. So come along with me and let's get started. So even though it is the middle of winter, sometimes it's very nice to have something that is crisp and refreshing and reminds us of the spring and summer to come. This is very easy, and it makes 12 individual cheesecakes, so it's already portion controlled. So come along with me and let's get started. So we are going to need to preheat our oven for our cheesecakes, and that needs to be 325 degrees. For my mini cheesecakes, I am going to be using a mini cheesecake pan because I like those kinds of things, and I like to collect bakeware and cookware. So that's what I'm using. I purchased mine on Amazon. It will be linked in our favorites on Amazon. You do not have to use this, but mine make 12 individual cheesecakes, and I will show you how it works when I'm preparing the cheesecakes. You could just use a regular standard muffin tin and definitely put liners in there if you would like your cheesecakes to come out. I definitely recommend silicone liners instead of paper ones. You'll get more of your crust that way. So the first thing that we want to do is to prepare our crust for the bottom of our mini cheesecakes because they are going to need to pre-cook for about 5 minutes or so. So we want to get that step started first. So you're going to need a small bowl in order to prepare your crust ingredients. Into our bowl, we are going to take 3/4 of a cup of almond flour. I'm going to be using blanched almond flour, and I'm just going to put this in the bottom of my bowl. And into my flour, I'm going to put just a small amount of sweetener because the rest of our ingredients are going to be sweetened, so we don't need our crust to be too sweet. But I do like to have just a little bit of sweetness to it. So I'm just going to be using a monk fruit stevia blend here, and I'm going to be putting about 2 teaspoons or so of sweetener into my crumbs. And I'm just going to give that a little bit of a whisk with my fork, just to incorporate our sweetener into our crumbs a bit. And it doesn't matter if your almond flour is a little lumpy because we're going to combine this with a fat. So we're going to be using butter here, and I have 3 tablespoons that I have melted. And I'm just going to start working that around to prepare our crust. And it's just going to come together into nice shortbread ingredients. Okay, so there is our crust ingredients. Now I'm going to take my little mini cheesecake pan, and I'm going to put my crust ingredients into each cheesecake and press it down. So I'm just going to take my plastic spoon, and I'm going to start placing that into our little molds here. And I'm going to start out with less than I think I might need, just to make sure that I get all 12, and then I can add or take away. Okay, so I'm going to assess where I might want a little more or a little less, just to make these as even as I can get them. Now I have sprayed the bottom of my little mini cheesecake mold here with some non-stick avocado oil spray, just to help us facilitate removal. It shouldn't be an issue because we did use butter in our crust, but I just generally do that. Now I'm just going to start with my fingers and press it into the mold, just around to the bottom. And just using your fingers is the best way with anything small like this. Now if you were using a muffin tin, then you would do something similar. only you would be using what I would recommend as a silicone liner, just because I find that you get a lot more of your product when you use a silicone liner versus using a paper liner. So when it comes time, after we've baked them and chilled them, we will then push on that, just like you would with a springform pan or a cake pan that has a separate piece there. And then everything should rise up to be able to remove your dessert in that way. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. So we're only going to be baking these crusts for about 5 minutes because we are going to continue baking once we put our cheesecake ingredients in. So we don't need our crusts to pre-bake for too long. Okay, into our oven they go. 5 minutes. So I am just going to remove our crusts and set them aside while we prepare the rest of our cheesecake batter. And you can see they're just slightly brown. Before we begin making our cheesecake batter, I wanted to discuss limes for a minute here, since this is a key lime cheesecake. Now, key limes, you can generally find them in the grocery store pretty much any time of year. I found mine just with the regular citrus fruit. And they come in a bag like this. The ones at my grocery store only cost $1.68 for the entire bag, so it wasn't very cost prohibitive. The thing with key limes is they're very tiny for the most part. They're quite a bit smaller. I have some Persian limes here to give you a size reference. Now, Persian limes are generally the style of lime that you find in the grocery store. So you're going to get a slightly different flavor. Key limes do have a different flavor than regular limes, but you could, of course, use regular limes if you could not find key limes. Key limes are a bit lighter, they're a little bit tartar and a bit more floral tasting. But you could use either one, or you could use a combination of both. Because we're going to be using zest in this recipe, sometimes it is easier to zest a larger lime, even though I did manage to zest the smaller ones here. Additionally, you're going to need some key lime juice for this key lime cheesecake. So it can be a little time consuming to juice key limes. I'll show you what I did. When I juiced mine, I cut them in half and then I squeezed them over a sieve because, like most citrus fruit, there's quite a bit of seed left over. So if you don't do that, you'll end up with seeds in your lime juice. So it's much easier if you juice it over a sieve. If you don't want to do that and you just want to skip the middleman altogether, that is totally an optional step here. You can buy, just with the rest of the citrus juices in the juice aisle, you can buy key lime juice, and they have done all the work for you. And I have used Nellie and Joe's many times through the years, and they're a very reputable product. So you can just go ahead and skip the squeezing of the key limes and the finding of the key limes if you would rather just use regular limes for zesting and key lime juice just on the shelf of your grocery store. Okay, now we are going to begin our key lime cheesecake batter. So the first thing that we are going to need is softened cream cheese. I'm using Philadelphia brand here because it has the lowest macros where I live. And I have 12 ounces, so that is 1.5 bricks, because they come in 8-ounce bricks here in the United States. And this needs to be soft, so either leave it out at room temperature for a couple of hours, you could leave it out overnight, or you could pop it in the microwave for a few seconds if you're really super excited to get started. So to our cream cheese, I'm going to be adding 1/4 cup of sour cream, full fat sour cream. Okay, I'm just going to put that right in. And we are going to begin mixing the two of those together before we add our sweetener and other ingredients. So I'm just going to take a hand mixer to do that, starting out slowly. You can see how quickly it pulls together when your cream cheese is in a softened state. It's really essential that your cream cheese be soft. Okay, so next I am going to be adding our sweetener. I'm going to use Confectioner's Erythritol Monk Fruit Blend. I do recommend a confectioner's step here. We are going to be baking this, so if you just had granular, it would probably be okay. But I do like to use confectioners if I can for my cheesecakes. So I'm going to put in a half a cup to start. Here is where I recommend putting in a small amount of sweetener and then giving it a taste, or in this case I give CJ a taste because he's the sweetness meter. He likes things a little sweeter than I do, so I usually will defer to him in our sweetness level of the desserts. I'm going to start with a half a cup. You can increase it based on your personal preference or decrease it. I'm going to work this in just a little bit with my spatula before I begin mixing with my hand mixer, just because it's a powdered product and it kicks up quite a bit. I'm also going to be adding a little bit of squeezy sweetener. In our case here, we've got what's left of our liquid Splenda. You can use liquid stevia, you can omit this step. I just like having something that combines sweeteners because I find that it does assist in preventing the cooling taste that some low-carb sweeteners can have. But once again, this is a personal preference. I'm going to go ahead and begin mixing. I'm going to give this a stir with my spatula. I'm also going to give CJ a taste. It's good? All right. Excellent. Okay, so we have our creamy cheesecake batter. Now we're going to start to incorporate our key lime flavors. So into our batter, I want zest. And as we discussed earlier, you could zest the key limes if you wanted, or you could zest Persian limes, the larger limes. I just used my microplane. This is also in our Amazon list. I have used many microplanes over the years. They are not created equal. This one is fabulous. I have about 2 tablespoons of zest. As with sweetener and anything else, definitely use more or less depending on your taste, but I happen to love citrus fruit and zest, so I err on the side of more. And actually, most of your lime flavor, or any of your citrus flavors for that matter, lemon and orange as well, all the flavor is found in the zest because that's where the oil of the fruit is at. I'm going to take my squeezed key lime juice here. I did squeeze my key limes, but as we talked about before, you could definitely use already prepared key lime juice. I have about, I'm going to say 3 tablespoons here, and that's what you need. You need 3 tablespoons of lime juice. I'm also going to add just a little bit of vanilla extract, just a tiny bit, just to give it that little bit of fresh baked sweetness, and I'm only going to be using about a teaspoon. I am personally going to add one more ingredient before I begin mixing this up, and that is a little bit of green food color. Now I'm only going to put in 1 drop. This is completely optional. If you don't mind your key lime cheesecake to be basically white or just very slightly yellow, you could go ahead and leave it in its natural state. I want mine to be just a tiny bit greener, so I'm going to put in about 1 drop of food color. I am just going to go ahead and start mixing this, starting slowly. Okay, so here we have our batter. We only have 1 more ingredient to put in. So the final ingredient for our cheesecake batter is 1 egg. 2 things. I find it's quite important that your egg be at room temperature. So you can put it in hot water if you're removing it directly from the fridge for about 5 to 10 minutes and it will rise to room temperature. Some people do choose to microwave their egg to bring it to room temperature, but I like the more even temperature of using hot water. I'm kind of old-fashioned. I like double boilers too. Anyway, 1 egg, room temperature. The second thing that's important is we don't want to spend too much time mixing our egg into our batter. If you overmix your egg, sometimes it can make your cheesecakes want to fall in the center. So we just want to combine this egg till it's just combined into our batter. We don't want to keep beating and beating and beating. Okay, so 1 egg. So I'm going to do a quick beat and then a quick scoop around, and that will be that. All right. I'm going to do a quick scoop around with my spatula, and then we will be ready to put our batter into our molds. So we have let our crusts that we partially cooked sit over here. My pan is no longer hot, and I'm going to transfer it to the cupboard so that I can fill them up. I'm going to go ahead and transfer my batter into my Pyrex container with a spout, just because I'm trying to think of the best way to fill these. Okay, I'm just going to start pouring in. And I'm going to start with a smaller amount in each one, just like I did with the crust, because I can always fill more, but I want to make sure that I'm getting all of my molds filled first. Okay, I'm going to go back and continue to fill evenly. So I'm going to put our cheesecakes into our oven, still at 325 degrees. I'm going to start at 15 minutes, and then I will check on it. It could need to bake for 15 to 20 minutes, usually around in there. Now with cheesecakes, you want the top to be just done. And I will show you when that happens, because you still want just a little bit of jiggle with cheesecake. If you don't have any jiggle, you've overcooked it, and you definitely don't want to do that. So that's why I'm going to start with 15 minutes and then check on it. 325 degrees. It has been 15 minutes. We're going to do the jiggle test, and they are a little jiggly. But you don't want any batter on your finger. You want them to bounce back. So 15 minutes is not enough. I'm going to put them in for another 2 minutes, and then I'm going to check them. So if CJ will get in here really close, I will show you the spring.
Okay, I can't see past your hand.
Okay,
Go ahead.
spring. Boom, boom, boom. No residue. Okay? That's what we want. But watch this. They jiggle. You want some jiggling. Now, when I take these out, you'll look in the... I'll show you some in the back, because they have started to fall a little bit, which is okay. Because these are going to fall a bit anyway as they cool. That's what cheesecakes do. So I'm taking these out. You can see that a couple of these have fallen, but that's okay, because we're not for perfection here at CJ's Keto Kitchen. These are going to shrink down as they chill. That's what cheesecakes do. They puff up high, and then they will settle, which is fine, because like I stated before, we are going to decorate these up fancy with whipped cream and lime. So anyway, we're going to let these sit on the counter. I ended up cooking mine for 17 minutes. Remember to check them often. I'm going to let these sit, and they're going to settle a little bit and come to room temperature. And then after they have come to room temperature, I'm going to put them in the refrigerator for an hour to 2 hours, so they'll be fully chilled before I try to unmold them. That is the thing with cheesecakes, is you have to let them sit and you have to let them chill. Okay, I've let these sit out to get room temperature. Now I'm going to cover them with cling wrap and let them chill in the refrigerator for an hour or 2. before I unmold them and decorate the top. As you can see, some of them deflated and sunk in, and some of them did not. But once again, I want you to understand that this is perfectly normal with cheesecakes, especially mini cheesecakes, and that it doesn't matter. They're still going to taste great, and we're going to decorate them up and enjoy them. Okay. Bye-bye, baby cheesecakes. Okay, so these have been in the refrigerator for about 2 hours, and now we are going to unmold some of them and put them on a plate and decorate them for serving. So I will show you how that's going to go. As we talked about before with the cheesecake plate, underneath here is a little disc, and I'm going to push it, and that's going to assist it in rising up. So let's give that a try.
Should I get closer?
I'm pushing it from underneath. So there it comes. You can see the crust and then the cheesecake. And then I'm going to peel off the disc. See the disc? And then you've got your crust. So that's how a mini cheesecake pan would work. So I'm going to go ahead and unmold one of the ones that sunk. To show you that it's, you know, salvageable, it's not a big deal. So I would say that about half of my 12 kind of got the concave look, whereas half of them did not. And from what I've read, that's very common. And it doesn't mean that you did anything wrong. A lot of times it's just oven temperature. So just pull off the bottom carefully without removing the crust from the cheesecake. And that's if you use the cheesecake pan. But of course, if you're using a muffin tin, you would unmold it, of course, from your silicone. All right, so I'm just going to use some canned whipped cream. Great Value, which is Walmart, makes a low-carb whipped cream, but actually most of your canned whipped creams are quite low-carb. So, and we're only going to use a tiny little zhuzh. So, if you wanted to do homemade whipped cream, you totally could, but I'm not going to. So this guy, you know, because he has a big cavity, you can fill him up a little bit more full. You could do a tiny little dab like that. I have cut myself some limes. Now these giant wedges are, of course, the Persian limes that we discussed earlier in the video. And then the little tiny wedges are your key limes. So you could decorate them however you wished. If you wanted to do a big lime, you could, like that. Or if you wanted to do just a partial lime, you could do that. So there are some of your different choices in decorating, but either way, they're delicious. So there are our key lime mini cheesecakes. Enjoy. Okay, key lime mini cheesecakes. So tell us what you think about these key lime mini cheesecakes. Since you've actually been to Florida and had key lime pie. So we need to know from the expert.
Yep. So I'm an expert?
Yep. In this instance.
Okay. I ate a lot of key lime pie when I was in Florida. This is delicious. Fantastic. Awesome. I'm trying to use more words this year. It's really good. And it does taste like the key lime pie that I had in Florida. So, I know that some of these are the ones that may have sank a little bit. Taste just as good.
Yeah.
No difference in taste.
No, this was not a ketogenic recipe, and all the comments that I read, I would say at least probably 75% of the people had the sinking issue. So.
Yeah. So I don't know. Some of our more experienced cooks, y'all might experiment with it and come up with some magic way to make them not fall, but they taste good either way.
That's right.
And once you zhuzh them up to make them look fancy, you can't tell the difference anyway. So anyway, really good job, Mary. Thank you for doing it. Bye.
Thanks for joining us again tonight, you guys. We hope that you enjoy the mini cheesecakes. I know that we are definitely going to. We hope that you will consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell so that you know when our content goes up. We upload twice a week. We have keto conversations that go up on Wednesdays, and that's where we get together and talk about different ketogenic lifestyle topics. Sometimes we just sit around our table and visit about the keto lifestyle. Sometimes it's grocery hauls. Sometimes we talk about what we eat or do food unboxings. So definitely check out Wednesday. On Sunday, our new recipes go up, and I do 2 sweet and 2 savory every month. So definitely hit the bell so you don't miss out. We are on social media. We are on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest, and we're doing a little bit of TikTok as well. And other people post what they're eating, recipe ideas, just encouraging things, so definitely follow us on those platforms as well. If you need information about this recipe or any other recipe that we have already done on our channel, that is to be found on our blog, and that is cjsketokitchen.com. And there are all the recipes there. That's the ingredients, the macros, tips and tricks, any other thing that you might need, and also CJ's taste test follow-up. Once again, that is cjsketokitchen.com. We hope that you'll come back and see us again. And until that time, be safe and be well.